Radio.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT Willow Springs, is powered by ComEd. Visit ComEd.com/clean.
You know that you can listen to Chicago's Progressive Talk on WCPT AM 820. Stream us live at WCPT820.com and on the TuneIn Radio app. Or you can ask Alexa, Siri, or Google to play WCPT from TuneIn. But now you have another option. We're simulcasting our programming overnights. 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. on WSBC AM 1240 for a clearer reception in and around the city. Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820. And now overnights on WSBC 1240 AM, where facts matter.
We're going abroad for the first time in years. To Spain.
But we don't speak Spanish.
So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks. Babbel's conversational method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish.
Estoy muy emocionado para ir a España contigo.
Aw, he just said, I'm very excited to go to Spain with you. Nos vamos a divertir mucho.
And that means we're going to have a lot of fun.
Sí. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
The following program, Collaboraction Radio, is sponsored by Collaboraction, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of Heartland Signal, LLC, or its management.
That time. Crash. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Collaboration Radio. We have a very special show today. We're keeping it in the family today. I'm Anthony Mosley. That was DJ Lady D. I'm here with my co-host, Beverly Dines.
Hi.
And you're listening to us live on 820 AM, WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio.
Collaboration is a 27-year-old nonprofit whose mission is to build knowledge, empathy, dialogue, and action around oppression and inequity through live theater, film, and now radio that leverage the power of storytelling and community to cultivate positive social change. We are sponsored by the Joseph and Bessie Feinberg Foundation. Today's episode of Collaboration Radio is sponsored by AV Chicago, Chicago's leading provider of AV production and event management services. And Ethos Collective. Event Collective is a purpose-driven destination and event management company that seeks to become a trusted strategic ally to your business as we delight your audience and generate impactful outcomes. Visit ethoseventcollective.com to learn more and schedule a meeting with their team. After our show today, if you feel impassioned and want to join the conversation, Collaboration Radio is made possible by donors and members like you. Email radio@collaboration.org or go to www.collaboration.org to learn more.
July 20th, we made it.
We made it.
July 20th, 2024. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of 20s and a 7 if we're playing Texas Hold'em with the date. Mm-hmm. We had the House of Belonging event last night.
We did. Centra Delgado.
Experience at the Epiphany Center for the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
it was Beverly's first time seeing the Sandra Delgado
experience. She was phenomenal.
What'd you think? Yeah.
She was phenomenal. I was telling folks that we went with that I purposefully did not watch any videos of the event or look at any past shows of hers because I wanted to see it with fresh eyes. She's so fabulous in person. I knew it was going to be fabulous. And gosh, my goodness, that just tore the hinges off of the event. And if you missed it, you have the opportunity to see her incredible show, La Habana Madrid, which is at the Millennium Park Pritzker Pavilion on August 23rd. So if you've got some FOMO hearing how incredible it was, you have another chance to see her with an incredible cast and a story that is Chicago born and bred on August 23rd.
Before we move on, what was your favorite part of the night?
Last night?
Yeah.
There was a part where during the show, there's two actually. One was where she asked, the theme was summer loving, and the context was around loving yourself and loving others around you. And she asked the audience to reflect on the things that we love about ourselves, kind of at the top of the show. And I think something that makes folks really uncomfortable sometimes is to think about, okay, what do I like about myself? Because we're always self-critical. We're always thinking about the things we could change. And even at our table, folks got a little clammy. And, my husband was like, I don't know if I want to say. I'm like, no, this is what it's for. And after we got to sharing, it just really opened up the show in a way that everybody was already starting to spread love. And then the second part was this conga line that happened so organically. She was playing this beautiful cumbia, and the audience felt called to just this large conga line around this gorgeous, and to set the scene for you, it's this beautifully rehabbed church, and so you see these stained glass windows that are being illuminated by the light and the music, and everyone, including our artistic director, Anthony Mosley, got on the line and then did a little hand arch, too, with some folks. It was really fun.
She was like, Sandra hates conga lines. She thinks they're stupid. And I love them.
You make it a point.
Yeah. When I was at my grandparents' house, when I was 3 and 4 and 5, they had this bell. And I used to play this game called All the Buddies Line Up. And I would ring this bell, and I would say, all the buddies line up. And I'd walk around the house, and all my aunts and uncles and some of my cousins, I was the oldest grandchild, and I would make the whole family, and they would all follow me around like the Pied Piper. And I don't know if somebody taught it to me or if I learned it, but so when she saw this huge 150-person conga line in her head while performing, she's like, Anthony!
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it wasn't me. I barely did anything. I did do a little arch thing. My favorite part of the night was when she talked about how during the pandemic, she really kind of got really depressed and bottomed out, as a lot of us did, especially those that make our living in the live shared experience. We're like, I invested my whole life into people being in a room together. Yeah. Maybe I should have made radio or TV or widgets. But she said her mantra that she kind of developed in her practice of yoga nidra, which is basically like mental yoga while laying in bed, was, the gifts the universe has given to me, I give to others, knowing that the reflection will come back to me. Mm-hmm. And for her to share that so openly with the room that was actually the reflection.
Yeah.
I love meta-theatrics, and that was my favorite part of the night. We got a big, oh, and here's if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, there's the La Habana Madrid image, August 23rd at the Pritzker Pavilion. Common is at the Pritzker Pavilion tonight, Chicago's very own, playing with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. After listening to Collaboration Radio, you may want to get yourself together and get down to Common. I'm sure it's going to be very busy, but if you get there at the second half of the show, I bet you can just kind of walk in and sneak in the back and sneak out. It's free. And then next week we launch our tour of the light. Our artivists ages 14 to 18. They all making work about their social change platforms. Will be starting Thursday at Austin Town Hall on the west side, right off the Green Line stop, in front of Austin Town Hall, which is an incredible cultural center. And the cool thing is there's a farmer's market with a DJ from 1 to 6. Well, our DJ goes on at 4:30, so we have done some advanced DJ communications, and our DJ is going to take it over from their DJ, so we'll have a seamless transition, and we'll go from farmer's market to a different kind of vegetables of inner growth and nutrition from our young people at the Light. And then on Friday, we are at Loyola. Oh, that show's at 5 o'clock. Bring the cooler, the family, and a chair, and an open heart. And then Friday at Loyola Park, right on the beach up in Rogers Park. That's a 5 o'clock show, and you can make it a beach thing. And then on Saturday, we're at 12:30, right after high noon, at the amazing Hamilton Park in Englewood, which is an incredible park. I did tell Beverly on Thursday night that we should do a big house music party in Hamilton Park. So let it be. Let it be. It shall be one day. But come see us down in Hamilton Park. It's a great park. I love those guys down there. My guy Keon, I'm going to come see you, and I'm going to tell you that I shouted you out on the radio today. So, and then I'll play it for you on my phone, and then I'll hug you right now and say, so good to see you, Keon. So let's see if I can make that happen. And we're building our new home in the Kimball Arts Center every day. That's the number one thing that we're doing. And people are getting more excited, and we're just dotting our I's and crossing our T's around our drawings and our permits. We're ready to go. And hopefully we'll get that clearance very shortly. In the meantime, we did have Alderperson Fuentes come visit us, and she's incredible. What a great alderperson we have over there in Humboldt Park. And I think this is episode 54. So if you want to call in, we have DJ KC here in the house. And we're going to be talking about music, and we're going to be talking about Chicago, and we're going to be talking about social change, and we're going to be talking about the perspective of the DJ from the other sides of the wax. And if you want to call in and check in with us and with Dave, Beverly, and I, or you want to share something that you love about yourself, let's do it. 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-9278. And you can go to collaboraction.org to learn about all that stuff. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. And let's take it away, Beverly.
Yay. Yes. So as Anthony said, today's episode is a special one because as he mentioned, you might have heard two Dineses while we were doing the intros, and that's because my father is our guest today, or otherwise known as DJ KC, during his spinning days. And so we're really excited to have David Dines, who is a DJ in Chicago during some of the most turning points in music history, both locally and nationally. David is a graduate from both Elmhurst University and Roosevelt University, as well as a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the first African-American fraternity. David's career DJing spanned 2 decades, where audiences could have heard him on WRSC FM or DJing events around the Chicagoland area. Born and raised in the south side of Chicago, David was an active member of the community known for bringing groups together through music or service initiatives. David would regularly push back against stigmas relating to Black artists and was known to play independent artists of color or deep cuts on his station and at events, fighting against the quote-unquote crossover racial prejudices of the time. While he is a respected leader and an alternative profession to DJing today, David continues to be a cultural historian and can even be seen spinning a set at events. David believes firmly in the intersection of music and social justice, and his living legacy continues to inspire those who interact with him within the community. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you for being on with us today.
I'm humbled.
We're excited to have you. And, before we dive into the first question, one of the things I love about the bio that I just thought about is the deep cuts piece, because and we have some questions for him on that in a minute. Just growing up, the CDs or records in the house with folks' names on it that, even for those who are listening, you may never hear of, was super cool growing up. And so we're excited to jump into that. But Anthony, why don't you kick us off with our first question, if you want to?
So Dave, or should I say DJ KC, who were your first musical influences? And how did that lead to you becoming a DJ?
Well, when you talk about musical influences, I wouldn't say I had influences. I started listening to music at a very, very young age because my family was very musical. Mm-hmm. I mean, all the way around. I constantly, you come home, music, radio is on. And, I grew up, especially coming up in the 60s, my sister was a little bit older than me. So there was always the Motown sound, stack sound, things like that was going on. And I really became interested because I always started out, I had a little close and play record player, and I always wanted to say, listen, I want to buy this song, this 45. And I had a stack of 45s, which I had most of the top 10, hits at the time. And I had to have been about 11, 12 years old. So again, when you talk about influences, you have a lot of different artists out there, but some of my major influences was like the Temptations, Marvin Gaye. You had Stevie Wonder, all of which the writing and the music was just incredible for the time. And but as far as going into actually spinning music, my major influences was actual disc jockeys themselves. Okay, and I can speak of the late great Richard Peggy, who was on WVON AM, as well as Herb Kent. He is also late. And these two individuals had a major impact as far as the direction that I wanted to go. And I started spinning music in the early 70s, and I was doing just mainly house parties, high school events, things of that nature. And I was not a powerful force out there, but, I tried to make my situation, when I would spin, make sure that everybody had a good time, and you spent from the heart. Okay, a lot of people, they put on the commercial stuff and they say, well, okay, this is great, but you have to spin from the heart and know your audience. Mm-hmm. And that's what I tried to really expound on and practice with as I went through my early career.
And a lot of that, sorry.
Well, and so if we went to one of those parties and you were there, was this getting into disco, or were you still coming out of Motown, or a little bit in between, a little Al Green?
Well, it was a little bit in between because disco really started roughly about 1974. It was a time when the music was changing. The early 70s, had a difference of, different sound. You had the Ohio Players out there and a whole bunch of other groups that were starting up. And the big dance at the time was the bump. Mm-hmm. And so everyone was into that. And that was the biggest thing since the twist. And but when disco started, I became really attached to it. I loved it. I thought it was a genre of music that was not going to go away. I really didn't. And technically, to this day, you even have, they call it new disco, so to speak, but it's not the same. Yeah. It is not the same.
And what were those early bands that really were like, oh, I love disco. This is my entryway.
Okay. Well, of course.
Or records.
Casey and the Sunshine Band right off the bat. you talk about TK Records, all right? They were the house band for a lot of different artists, okay? Like George McCrae. George McCrae, Rock Your Baby, I believe, okay, in my opinion, this is the first commercial disco record, okay? I mean, this was truly what put disco on the map. And then, of course, you had the Gloria Gaynors, you know, Never Can Say Goodbye, and a whole lot of other different things. Thelma Houston, all of these different songs.
This way.
Yes, and see, and even Motown had to try to change up from their style to accommodate the disco scene, and they had some problems with that.
and what neighborhoods were you in?
Basically, I was pretty much on the south side of Chicago. I grew up in West Woodlawn, and so many of the functions that I did were mainly like basement parties, house parties, things like that, including in the suburbs. I would go as far south as, I don't know, I want to try to say I've done a couple of parties in Inglewood, as well as, way far south in Pullman area, places like that. But these are all like private parties, pretty much, nothing, really extravagant.
I think it's so cool too, though, like even speaking to that piece, is in your previous comment, you had mentioned like playing from the heart, playing for your audience. And, so when I was a DJ in college, mainly inspired by my dad, I remember not playing a lot of the songs that were popular at the time because I would feel out, and actually sometimes even with my iPhone or with my iPod, purposefully choose songs in a particular order instead of letting the playlist run, which is sometimes what folks do at parties, just like letting the playlist speak for itself, or purposefully choosing because the vibe would ebb and flow, right? And even recently, there's a huge push now for clubs to go back to dance music because they're tired of the EDM. Like you can't really dance to that. You're kind of bopping along, and the younger generation is kind of they want that culture again that comes from really enjoying a song and being able to dance together and not be on your phone and like bobbing back and forth. So I think we'll hopefully see a continued push for that, because you're right, there is a big difference between that and everybody having their hands in the air and just waving around.
Like you just don't care.
Like you just don't care. So then Anthony kind of teed this up a little bit, but you already highlighted the kind of evolution through the 70s and 80s of music in Chicago and the transition from, Motown sound, disco, and then house comes in the 80s. How did that evolve for you as you were DJing throughout that time, especially with wanting to play from the heart?
Okay, well, you have to understand, depending on what type of crowd that you had, you had to read your crowd. You had to read your audience. And, if you had a mixed crowd, a lot of people like the commercial stuff. They loved, the top 10, off the radio kind of items. However, you would have to carefully slip in those deep cuts. Yep. And then that's when people would come over to the table, say, hey, man, what album is that on? And that's how a lot of people got introduced to a lot of different music that did not get any type of airplay whatsoever. And I thought that I was instrumental in that. One thing, when I had started at Elmhurst University at WRSC, they did not have they had a program director, but it was a different time where you basically made your own program. You played the music that was on your playlist, and so you did not have the control of how radio is now. Pretty much, you're looking at a computer screen, and the computer is saying, okay, the next song is coming up in 30 seconds. It's
different, yeah.
And it's a little bit different. It was different then. So I played a lot of deep cuts on the radio, and a lot of people, and I would, give the name of the artist and the name of the song, and people would call in and they says, man, what album is that on? And people have never, sometimes because, commercial radio wouldn't ever play this stuff. And I mean, it was danceable songs. And even to this day, when you have some stations that are going back and they're saying, okay, we're going to dig deep in the crate. And so I would sometimes call in. I say, okay, you're going to dig deep in the crate. Okay, why don't you play some, let me see, Gino Socio. And I said, okay. And they go, that's, this is an R&B show, I said, but this is an R&B song. Okay. Yeah. I said, look it up. I said, if you all are digging deep in the crate for street hits, Gino Socio pretty much was pretty big back in the late 70s, early 80s, and as far as dance is concerned. So, again, when it comes down to back to your initial question, you had to pay attention to the trends, and above all, just like let's just say hip hop kind of came in, and I personally, I liked it, but I thought, along with a few other folks, that this is going to be short-lived, okay? Sugar Hill Gang came out with Rapper's Delight. It was a great song. Everybody knew all the lyrics, everything like that. And then we said, okay, that was nice. Yeah. And then it took off. So you had to now introduce a lot of that into your set. Grandmaster Flash, all these different artists and things like that, because people wanted to hear it. Hey, what is Spoonie G doing, and so on and so forth. It's a lot of different artists that came out during that era, and it has evolved even to this day. It's a little bit different, but again, a lot was going on, but you had to just adjust and adapt to the situation that exists.
And I think it's funny that you mentioned that for you, you're like, disco is going to be around forever. And yes, you're right. We do have new disco now, but then at the same token, right? You're like this new wave of hip hop. That's not. So it's interesting how as music has evolved with its elasticity, right? We don't truly know. What's going to stick or not, right?
Right. It's when you talk about the disco thing, disco, it was full speed ahead in about 76, 77, that era around there, 78. But some kind of way there was some sort of pushback about this particular genre of music. There was
and you were at the disco demolition, at Comiskey.
Now, what was that like?
That was nuts. Okay, I went down there out of curiosity because look, it was 99 cents in the disco record. Okay, you can get in the door. And it was a doubleheader that day, and the place was jam packed. Okay, and of course it got really kind of rowdy because they did the so-called demolition in the center of the field, okay, during the between the two games. And so when you blew up all these records, okay, the crowd went nuts, all right. And so there was so much going on, including it got really dangerous in there because people were throwing around albums, okay, that they didn't collect at the door, and they were flying, frisbees that were very sharp. Yeah. And so you had to kind of, duck and everything like that. But it was more or less, anyway, the Sox had to forfeit the game, the second game, because the field got trashed. That's,
And disco, the majority of disco dancers were black folks, right? Yeah. And so this was a blatant racist event, was it not?
Yeah. It's this Steve Dahl, it was a big publicity stunt. I think that was by Bill Veck's son or something like that. But anyway, and they
weren't saying down with country music,
No, but you know what? All the T-shirts were already out. Disco sucks. That was a big thing. And my opinion on that, I said people who think that disco sucked, okay, is because they couldn't dance to it.
They don't have rhythm. If you don't have rhythm.
And that's what I thought about that. Okay, because it was right after that it was pretty much, it was going downhill for the genre. And then things changed. Early 80s, Then there was the punk thing, you know, and, you know, you had the B-52s and the Pretenders and all these different things. And people wanted to hear this at parties. And they said, for all the punkers out there, okay, I'm going to do a punk set, you know. Yeah. But see, that kind of came and went. You know, but a lot of the former discos and things like that, they had to start, you know, doing sets for the punkers and things, and so it evolved. Everything was evolving.
So I think even to that point, you know, you've spoken often growing up about kind of the racial implication of the crossover, right? And like Anthony was saying too, even the racial implication of Disco Demolition, because, you know, there's so much evidence, right, of as these fads come and go, and especially when they gain momentum from Black artists or brown artists, that's suddenly when, okay, we need to pivot, or artists come over and co-op the genres. And so how do you feel that being actually even taking a step back, like what did music play? Like, what was the role that music played for you when it came to social justice in Chicago during your career? Because you're very passionate about ensuring, at least for when we would have conversations about remembering the heritage behind this music, and why the deep cuts and why the true authenticity of these artists were so important, especially for DJs on the ground who are making these community connections happen. Like, what role did that play for you when it came to social justice in Chicago during that time? Because 60, 70, and 80 was, I mean, there's a lot happening.
Of course, obviously in the 60s, all right, I wasn't really heavy into it. I was just a kid, you know, but still I had a heavy interest in music. But in the 70s, you know, there was a lot of social change. You know, after 1968, 68 was a very, very tumultuous year, okay? I mean, it was pretty much there was so much change, and everyone thought that we were all, you know, we're all just going to just go. But the thing is, the music scene, for me, you had different artists that, well, they had commercial music, but they also had music that, you know, touched home on a lot of different social issues, all right, that did not get any airplay whatsoever, okay? Temptations, you know, was one of them, you know, Message from a Black Man, things like that. I mean, it was a lot of different things. The Shy Lights, you know, they had a lot of music, okay, that, you know, like We Are Neighbors. I mean, it was very, very hit home about, you know, being able to live together, okay? However, you all don't understand that, hey, we're all the same here, you know, but we have to be able to get, we're different, but we have to live together. Yeah. And there was a lot of that. You know, there's tons and tons of artists that, you know, they produce music about social change and activism and things like that. Gil Scott-Heron, who I think is the original rapper, okay? His music, a lot of his music was so charged, okay, it just could not be played on the air. But it's really, really good. He hit home on very, very serious subject matter, politically as well as socially, and he told it like it was. So then, as you would play these artists, what would be the reaction from your audiences, or even on the radio, like your viewers? You know, as you would try to play kind of these more real songs or these more real stories? Well, you know, it depended on the night. I can give an example, like at RSE. You know, you would play some of these songs, okay, that basically were not mainstream. They were pretty much on a different level. And what would happen, I would get a phone call. I'd get a phone call from outside, and, you know, somebody says, hey, listen, why do you keep playing this in music? You know, I mean, we don't, you know, nobody wants to hear this. It's supposed to be rock and roll station. Wow. And it, you know, I received those calls on a lot of different occasions. And I still did not change my format. And the general manager, you know, they didn't even listen anyway. So it was kind of, you know, I had my own little piece of the pie, so to speak, because we were on a pie system, and I had my little piece of pie, and nobody disturbed it.
Yeah. So then it kind of, and I know Anthony had something, but it kind of empowered you to continue to keep playing it, because it's at that point you're obviously eliciting a response for somebody to call in to ask, and then also to spew hatred like that, when music is music, like everyone's telling their story. It's interesting how over time kind of the evolution of how people choose to express themselves is manifested, especially on radio, if you think about radio or Spotify or how we do it now. But Anthony,
I had you popcorned a lot of things for me. One of them is the connections, the cycles of the '68 riots coming to Chicago with a Democratic convention in a month, and the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump, and the echoes of the assassinations of '68, and the rising tension. You were a boy back then, but what cycles do you see that are similar and different from then to now? And I know some of that is just looking back at it in the 70s and stuff, but I think it's a really big, important topic for us Chicagoans. We have a new population of migrants that have called our city home. We have a few wars that we're involved in around the world, and we have a lot of needs here in Chicago, and we have a very divided country, and who is gathering here in our city to put Biden on the ticket again. It's just so. Just as an elder, first of all, do you remember being alive during the '68 riots, or were you like 5?
No, actually it was 10. I remember it very well, because you had to realize the riots in '68. You had the Democratic Convention, which was at the International Amphitheater, because McCormick Place had just burned down the year before, and so they had to move it over there. But all of this was mainly about the Vietnam War. This whole thing, you had Abby Hoffman and all these folks that were basically, they wanted to be heard about this. And then we had a mayor, Richard Daley, who, basically, he sent the police out there full force, all right, and he even said live, he says, the police are not there to create disorder, they're there to preserve disorder. He said this in the news media, and I understand that. I was young then, but I paid close attention to all of this, because all of this was televised. All of this, I read the newspapers all the time. That's how I learned to read, is reading the newspaper, And unfortunately, when you talk about in comparison, like now we're having another Democratic convention, yes, it's been a long time, but the issues are different. Yes, there was an attempted assassination on former President Trump. You had, there's a lot of different things. People are still talking about the issues in Israel and Gaza over there. And, we have everyone has the right to protest. Dr. King said, somewhere I read, I have the right to protest for rights. That's the way that it is. And I believe that this year will be a little bit different than '68, because '68 was so, it was just up for grabs because of all the assassinations and everything that was going on. After Dr. King was assassinated, again, I remember neighborhoods just going up in flames, and it was just, and then even like traveling to Detroit where I had family, that was really insane. So,
the West Side was, burnt down.
Yeah, Madison Street never recovered. It never recovered.
Yeah. And North Lawndale, Austin. I mean, and here we are. And I hope we've learned from our history. And it is very different. But there's a similarity, and the student protests of the day are for ceasefire and for rights for Gaza, human right campaign, and I asked my daughter this question. Dave, I'll ask you and see if you can answer it. Gil Scott-Heron said, "The revolution will not be televised." Why did he say that? Do you know what he meant from that?
Well, when you talk about the revolution will not be televised, okay, it has to be done. It's not going to be the revolution that everyone is thinking about here, okay? It's a different kind of revolution.
Yep. And I know I have Gil Scott-Heron's exact answer. So you're on track.
Yes.
You're getting warm.
Yes.
And your answer is right for you. But do you know what it's a different kind of revolution. So what kind is it? What does Gil think?
Political revolution.
It's the revolution that happens in the individual's mind. Mm-hmm. You can't get a camera on what change starts from within, and the revolution will not be televised because it's not something you can see, and Coca-Cola can't buy ads for it. And I did play the song "I'll Take Care of You" for my daughter and her friends, and they said, "Oh, that's that song by Drake and Rihanna." I said, "Nope, this is the song. This is the song." So if you don't know "I'll Take Care of You" by Gil Scott-Heron, listen to that, and then listen to Lady Day and John Coltrane.
Well, to that point about the cyclical nature of history, right? Like even right now, there's the 2010 recession pop is like reemerging on socials, which is hilarious for me because I think 2010 was a pivotal year for me with music. And I remember, us driving us to school or to different things, and we would be listening to Loud by Rihanna, or Teenage Dream had just come out by Katy Perry, and then Bruno Mars. 2010 was like such an insane year for music.
Wait, the recession music pop?
Recession pop is what it's called. So it's pop music that was made between 2008 and 2011 when we were in the height of the recession. And all of the themes in the music is you have no cares, spend your rent money, go to the club, we only have one night, we're going to die young anyway. Like every single song, if you go and look up, please do it, go up and look reception pop. Every single song from Pitbull, Neo, tonight, I'm in love on you because we don't have anything else to do. Like, I'm going to spend my rent money tonight. Like every single one. I'm so passionate about this because it was, looking back on it now, it's so clear the evidential themes of that time, which from the corporate standpoint was spend all your money, even though we're in a recession, spend it, and we're going to have all these really popular folks repeat these songs. So now they're becoming viral again, and so it makes me think about what you had said about how there's like neo disco that's making a reemergence. Like Dua Lipa is considered a neo disco artist, and Sabrina Carpenter is coming into that space, Doja Cat. And I think about, you talked about your kind of the implications of the crossover with social justice. We just talked about even inequity when it comes to socioeconomics. For you, how do you feel that being crossover friendly reinforces bias in the music industry, whether it be not just about race, but about pay inequity? I mean, we have these rappers who are in these mega million mansions who are talking about, it started from the bottom, now we're here. But, what does that look like to you?
Well, I'm just going to be honest with you, okay, and this is just my opinion, all right? When you talk about, say, an artist, okay, that has crossed over, so to speak, it's all about money. Okay, it's all about money, and everybody is for themselves. Mm-hmm. All right, this is why many good groups, many had broken up because people went on their own because it was about money. Mm-hmm. All right, we talked about like Earth, Wind and Fire, for example. Awesome. Okay, however, if everyone ever paid attention, the first record that they would ever put out for an upcoming album was commercially successful. It crossed over.
Was that Let's Groove or September?
Yeah, September, Let's Groove. You know, I mean, these records crossed over immediately, but the album had not been released yet. So when this record hit, you know, and it got really popular, for example, you know, Getaway, you know, something like that. That was on their Spirit album. The Spirit album didn't come out for maybe 2 months. Getaway came out in the summer. Spirit came out in the fall. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the album, really, really awesome. Okay, It was certified gold before it even was released. And in this particular case, none of the rest of the songs, except for that one song, crossed over. Okay, but people knew who Earth, Wind, and Fire were. But, you know, you would ask someone, you know, who basically just casually listens to music, and they say, well, have you heard, you know, Saturday Night, or have you heard, you know, Reasons, or have you heard, you know, these different songs? Well, no, you know, well, what about September? You know, I mean, it was like, you know, and September was on their greatest hits album. Okay, I mean, you had to buy the greatest hits album, which I already had all of the albums already, but in order to get that one song, you had to buy the greatest hits album.
Yeah. So
I just want to shout out Moore Maxwell Lawrence is watching us live from West Africa in Liberia. So we have a global show today with DJ Casey. Wow. Hello, Moore Maxwell Lawrence. Thank you for tuning in from the other side of the planet.
And I think, you know, to that point, it is interesting now that there's a huge push for artists to become independent because of that. In fact, during the pandemic, there was a huge push for independent artists of color. They were trying to get recording contracts because they saw that folks would blow up. They'd get a video of 1 million likes, and then they'd get a record deal with all of these different big ones. But then they'd go back onto social media, and I think this is how media can be such an agent for change, because they'd say, hey, I actually rejected my contract with insert group here because I realized that the glitz or the perceived, you know, financial gain was actually not going to happen for me if I lost my follower count or I didn't maintain the momentum from the 1 million. And a lot of Black artists are transitioning to independent, kind of crowd-funded or self-funded initiatives so that they can have artistic liberty and be able to put out the music that they feel best reflects themselves. And Victoria Monet is a great example of that. She just won 3 Grammys after 10 years writing for Ariana Grande and all these other artists. Ariana Grande, in that example, like took Victoria Monet's like image, her style, her everything, and for 10 years Victoria Monet hung in the background so she could stay independent. I believe she still is, and has won Grammys. But it's interesting how that dynamic impacts your ability to have longevity. Then, if that's your focus.
You know, they say if you can get 1,000 fans to pay $100 a year on everything you create, you can go independent.
That's a career.
And in 20 years, you know, with the continued acceleration exponentially of technology and platforms and the power of those platforms, just imagine how many independent artists will be able to really build a career, profit from their own right, keep their rights. I mean, you know, and everybody thought, you know, Prince was just, you know, really one of the first mainstream pop artists to really say this is completely wrong. This is a form of slavery, is what he said. And the artist formerly known as, you know, and he, in retrospect, was, you know, not just so musically gifted, but, you know, it just, wow, everything he did really seemed to be so thoughtful and cool. And he has some disco in some of those songs.
Oh, yeah.
You like Prince?
Love Prince.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the albums. So, I mean, but he produced, remember, he arranged, produced, conducted his own music. You know, he basically did it all.
Well, and he did have a female producer, one of his main producers that he worked with. And I just read that she came in she was working on When Doves Cry with him. And she was like, it's too much, it's too much, it's too much. And he's like, no. And then she took the bass out of the whole song. And it just opened it all up. And that's the When Doves Cry has no bass guitar and there's no bass line. If you listen to it, it's just like, and of course, like a woman would be like, get too much of this low end. This is not what the song is about.
Yeah. So then, you're a member, as you're wearing the hat, of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the first historically black fraternity. How did your time growing within that community impact your work as a DJ, and maybe like a few sentences?
Becoming a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, which was 11/19/79, 4:19 a.m. Okay. I had, once I was a member, I was already in the music scene, spinning music. Okay. So, it still just continued on, and now Alpha, pretty much I was doing larger sets and things like that, but it wasn't where it really was a big major change for me. Okay. I mean, the big change was me becoming a member of the fraternity. Okay. But I loved doing what I did, as far as my music was concerned.
Would you say the perspectives that you, kind of like from the brothers that you had made and the new people that you were meeting, like impact, like the music that you started to select also, kind of exposing you maybe to different genres or different music maybe that you hadn't experienced before?
Well, I did. There was some other brothers, who did spin music, all right, and so we kind of collaborated from time to time and talked about different artists and newer artists that were coming in on the scene. Right around that time, I was part of a record pool group called National Disc Jockey Association. Okay, so we were getting brand new music, from like MCA, Motown, 20th Century Fox Records, different record companies, and this was all brand new music. Okay, had never been, promotional copies, never been put on the radio, and so we would share this stuff and say, I listened to it. I think it's great. Let's see if it moves the crowd, and see and
market research.
And what happened is some of the albums that we would audition, especially in a big crowd situation, would go very well. However, these folks never saw any airplay. They never got a break. Okay, I mean, I had a ton of 12-inch LPs that were Frisbees, and and all these people needed was that one break. All right, but you play it, music, and people say, I was spending a house party one time, and I played the song. I think it was Fonzo Surrett or whoever it was, and it was a promotional copy, and I was jamming. Everybody was jamming, and this lady runs up to me. She says, "What do you know about that song?" And I said, "Yeah, isn't it great?" And she goes, "That's my boyfriend," like that,
But he wasn't a crossover artist. So it's like, I think it's funny that just super quick, when I had my radio show, I had a very similar, because I learned from you, I would find these CDs. We would also receive CDs from the radio, and I would dig into this box. And I'll never forget Echo Smith, who had their time in the mid 2010s. They had sent a promotional CD to the radio station, and I was listening to it. And the song "Cool Kids," which wound up going major, I was like, "Oh, this song's pretty cool." And there was another song that was really good, that was more of a ballad, that was on their thing, and I put it on the radio. I remember my friends being like, "Wait, that song's so cool." And they had written us a letter that were like, "Hey, we're a family band. We're just trying to get our name out there. We'd love to play at your university, if you could." And I remember going to the general manager and being like, "I really think actually this song is going to be a big deal." And these songs, because they had Bright was the other one. And the general manager's like, nah, we get these records, these CDs all the time. And my goodness, a year later, I wish that I could be like that. And I would, oh my gosh, I remember calling my dad and calling a few others and being like, oh my God, we could have had them on campus. So it's interesting how, there's artists who get that shot and then others that don't, but the market, utilizing the market, I should say, is a thing today that I just don't feel happens as frequently as it should. Folks release music, they try to push it themselves, but because folks aren't going to the club like they used to, and they're not going to dance together like they used to, the marketing strategy is so different. So in a few, just quickly, who are the new artists that you're listening to now? Like, name like a few of them, and then who are the artists that you're listening to still from throughout your career? Like maybe one or two.
Okay. Well, you have the artists like Bruno Mars. You have, I have to give him some credit. And, but of course, Rihanna and I like where she came from and how she did it. I mean, really, really fast. Okay, and I'm very proud of what she did. And you have other artists, The Weeknd, and some folks even say today, "You listen to The Weeknd?" I said, "Yes, I do." I think
he's an experimental artist.
Good, yeah. And
so how about from back in the day then? Like,
but when you talk about, I still listen to my Marvin Gaye. I still listen to my Earth, Wind. I still listen to Isaac Hayes. And I mean, the collection. All right, it depends on the mood. I will listen to just about anything, and it doesn't just mean R&B, soul, disco, or anything like that. It's a wide range of different things, as you well know. Such as classic rock and things of that nature. So
nice. How about you, Anthony? Who are you listening to right now? Like what's been on your playlist?
Well, Gil Scott-Heron. Let's see. What have I've got an interesting eclectic mix. I've been listening to some Beatles. One of my favorite songs is called "Kids" by Current Joys.
Kids.
That's an amazing one. I've been listening to this Sun Kil Moon, Holy Hive. I've been listening to some Neville Brothers, Israel Nash. Maggot Brain by Funkadelic is that guitar solo in Maggot Brain. If you haven't listened to that, and it's just so stripped down, and it'll really. Les Fleurs by Minnie Repperton is a song that I really love, as well as what's the other one that my daughter got me all on to? Dancing in the Moonlight, King Harvest. So a little Alabama Shakes, Roscoe by Midlake, Big Thief.
Wow.
Some of the stuff I've been listening to, I've been really into. Of course, in the summer, I like myself some Bob Marley, Pete Tosh, Grateful Dead, all the things that make you feel like kind of summer grooving.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Well,
Dave, thanks for joining the show, DJ KC.
Absolutely.
We're going to have to get you on.
It's an honor and privilege to be
You still
here.
have all your wax?
Yes, I do.
He sure does.
Oh, wow.
He sure does.
Yes, I do.
and we have to wrap it up, but I have one more question. So, as a disco DJ, when house music was born, what was your reaction to house music?
It was on fire, okay, and I became a full-fledged house head.
House head.
Yeah. So, and it was house music is just amazing. Okay, I mean, and it was right here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right here.
That's right.
Yeah.
At the warehouse.
And
okay.
Our board president is DJ Lady D, one of the queens of house music.
Yes.
Beverly and I were hanging out with some of the folks from Chosen Few and Laurie Branch, and music is a universal vibration that doesn't matter where you're from or what you look like. It'll get in your heart,
Shout out to all the DJs of the world.
Yeah. And Collaboraction.
Absolutely.
And as you know, thank you all for listening. You can listen to this podcast at WCPT SoundCloud and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on our Facebook, Instagram, or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, DJ KC, or Dad, as I say, thank you for joining us today. And I guess we'll catch you next time, right?
Yeah, it's Chicago summer. It's halftime, so get ready for the second half. We got a lot ahead of us.
The preceding program, Collaboraction Radio, was sponsored by Collaboraction, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of Heartland Signal, LLC, or its management.